I love it.
All right. Here we are, another week, another recording. It's very exciting. How are you, Michelle?
I am well. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm actually really good today. Thank you
Mm,
for asking. And
yeah,
we have the rain falling here in Northern California. It's just been kind of a cozy day.
nice.
My
Nice.
youngest daughter has finished her first round semester, I guess, of high school. She took her last finals today.
Wow.
So we're on vacation for a couple weeks, which is really
Officially
exciting.
official.
It's official. No running around 3 times a day for the next 2 weeks.
Wow.
Whew. And then my oldest daughter, we had some good news. She applied for an internship in marketing at Chico State, and she forgot she did it earlier in the year. And so this
Nice.
company came around and started asking and doing interview processes for some kind of a business internship with marketing, and they can like earn their way as a paid internship. So she
Oh,
went through a round of or two of calls, and then she got invited to a couple more, and then she had an actual interview yesterday, like
wow.
her busiest day, 4 of the finals, and she had a little pocket. She went to this interview, and then she texted us and said she got the job. So that's going to be a
Wow.
part-time marketing slash growing project into summer, and she'll work full-time there. So
Nice.
yeah, she's excited in her field. So
Even better.
yeah, it's like she's all excited. She's like, "That's my first grown-up job."
I love that.
But it's in your field, so it's your first freelance job.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. So
Nice.
thank you for asking. And we're just the last couple days, I've just had a chance to kind of integrate back into my family and mom life and wrap some presents and maybe put a few more lights. I've like pieced everything out days by days by days. The trees done, like that took 4 days. And then like lights are outside, and I had a few other things I wanted to add, and we finally got that done just a few nights ago. But I feel like we're getting ready for Christmas and just some downtime. And it's been a good couple days to just be in those moments.
Hmm.
So we always have the wonderful gift, I think, of chatting before we record our episodes. And there's always so much good information. I don't know why we just don't always just hit go.
Right.
But
Yeah, I was
we
thinking about
also
that
have good
today.
information after we get it all out too and say hi and catch up. But um, one of the things we were kind of talking about was this note that I write. I don't know if you guys do this too, and Michelle, you can speak to this as well, but I get these thoughts in my mind and I don't want to forget what
Mm,
they are, and I don't always have a notebook, and for some reason it's not the same if I put them in my notes section of my phone, so I just text myself.
mhm,
So I have this stream of these texts for me of just thoughts or little writings or
mhm.
words, groups of words I want to use in something later for content or whatnot. And one of the things I just wrote in between the time that we were meeting today was, you cannot find a solution when you are knee deep, hip deep, or shoulder deep in the problem. Your brain is unable to access the solution when it's devoured in stress. And there's more that I wrote to it, but I thought that might be a fun way to just kind of riff on that today for our topic.
I love that word, devoured.
Mm, it felt right.
Yeah, what do you like? What did it mean when you wrote it?
Well, and we spoke to this a little bit. When you get to a place where you have those moments of contentment, or you have those moments of peace, and I'll say this with the caveat of, maybe you don't always have that place, but there's always something in life where you're extra happy, or good things happen, like those good vibes are kind of flowing, and you can tell it's definitely different than the overwhelmed, stressed out, frustrated place that we can often tend to get ourselves kind of cycled into every single day.
Hmm.
And I say that now because I'm not so sure. Life can get so busy, and whether you have kids or don't have kids, or you own a business, like there's obligations and things that go with it all. And I can feel, or I have felt, very buried in the fact that so much stress can feel like it's just piling on top of you over and over and over again.
Mm,
And so in those moments where you're unable to really get out of that space, especially of overwhelm, and you're fighting to just have everything else around you chill, let's just pause as my daughter is coming into the office and grab paper. We are recording. Welcome to the podcast, and we'll be seeing you. This door is just pushing slowly with the hand reaching through, trying to not disturb, realizing that it's a really far way to go to get what she needs.
Love it. Amazing.
Just take the stuff. All right, moving on. So back to stress, being piled on top of stress and overwhelm and not able to see your way out of it. It just feels like no matter what you do, because you're constantly thinking about being in stress or not wanting to be in stress or all the things you don't want, it starts to perpetuate the same thing that you're going through over and over and over again. It starts to feel as though you're devoured.
Yeah.
Until which time, moment in time, volcano bursts where you vomit all over everybody around you. Basically, I need space, right? I need to regroup. I need to get back to that, what I like to call now homeostasis, but searching for anything that doesn't feel like this piled on level of stress. And so when I wrote Devoured, that's kind of what I envisioned, those moments in life that we can often fall into, doing all the things, having the to-do list, all the expectations, trying to please everybody, trying to be all for everybody, fix everything. I mean, I'm guilty of all of these things, and because they're old programming, they show up. And so those moments, I find it helpful to kind of check in and, at that moment, think, what do you need? Right now, what do you need that would feel opposite of where you are? And I don't think we can always see the solution to whatever, if there's a big problem or there's all these things going on, because we're so devoured in that, it's impossible to clear our minds enough to see until we can get to a place where we can step out of it with a different perspective.
Absolutely.
Hopefully that answers. I got a little sidetracked.
I mean, maybe, but I'm with you. I like the word devoured. I think there's it's just like a complete takeover, right? I think about, an image of like, if this is, us, that we're just being like overtaken by this, right? Stress, this thing, and completely consumed by it. And in that space and in that state, our survival desires get ignited. And then we end up, and you would probably better know than I would of all the technological terminology, but like all of the hormones, the stress hormones get created, and we get in that desperate fight or flight or freeze energy, and it becomes impossible to make any sort of thoughtful, intentional, and I might even say conscious choice, because in that space we are operating on instinct, because it's like, oh shit, I gotta fight for my life, right? I'm being devoured. So anything that we do, an action that we take, it's more frantic, right? It's less thoughtful. We convince ourselves that we don't have the time or the ability to really contemplate or process. We just react because that's what we have to do when we are in that space. So
Yeah.
I agree. And yeah, the old pattern and ways, they do show up more in times of stress because um, I think it's like our immune system is down, right? Like our defenses are lowered. We don't have the same um, like access. We cut off the channel, right, to our wisdom and our ability to be able to contemplate and discern and make choices. And I love what you said. I promise you, just maybe like a week ago, I wrote something about this because I found myself in that space and in place of feeling like I'm having a hard time breathing and struggling to figure something out. And my personal pattern is dive in, work harder, like don't get up until you figure it out, right? If there's a problem, you got to solve it. And what I did something, and then it was after I did it that I kind of reflected back and I'm like, what did you just do? Because it really helped. And what I realized is that, and it's really, Michelle, it's exactly what you said, shocker, is that I walked away for like 10 minutes and it was like, I have to get out of here, right? If here is the problem, I have to energetically cut myself from this attachment, right? So any kind of struggle, whether it's like a business problem, whether it's with spouse, whether it's with kids, whether it's with something you're trying to write, like if I feel stuck, I gotta get up and I gotta move because I can't see the solution when I'm focused on the problem.
Yes. So good. I
mean,
wrote
that's it's literally impossible.
Yeah, right. And it was so beautifully when you were talking about being in that fight or flight. And it reminds me that when we're in that state of heightened awareness of stress, we can do only three things. We can run,
right?
We can fight, or we can hide. And just knowing that, like, that can open up a couple other conversations, but let's just look at it in the context of solution finding. When we run, we can run away from the danger that's present, right? Back in prehistoric times, if we were running, we were running for our life from perhaps prehistoric animals that were trying to eat us, right? Or we hide in that situation to not be eaten. Or we stay and fight in hopes the odds are on our favor. When you felt like you just needed to lift yourself out of that situation, it's that instinct to run away. But what's beautiful is that sometimes running, when we do, and we're able to look back, we can often refine what we couldn't see in that moment because all the cortisol is running. So the other answer to your question was yes, cortisol starts running, the adrenals start pumping harder. All of our hormones, even our like female hormones, are part of that dance. And when one's pulling harder than the other, they're doing their own fight or flight. They're pulling from one, trying to give to the other. Everything's out of balance, and it's doing its best to kind of put the systems back in place, and they're not in homeostasis. And so you feel that repercussion in your body. You have heightened anxiety, you're constantly, you feel exhausted, you're emotional, you have all these outbursts, and it's just your body trying to get back to a place of, I even don't like the word balance, but that baseline where danger's over. And now all the other functioning becomes back to you. Like you said, you like even spiritually or consciously, you can't access when your brain is full of cortisol and it's running and it's kind of going through all the systems to try to get back to the place where it can breathe again.
Right.
And slow down. And so even just breathing, because we're not running from any prehistoric animals. And, there's been tons of information on our stress levels and what it does in the body and how what we eat affects it and how we sleep affects it and how how much or how little we exercise or what kind of exercise it fits us in. It doesn't matter where you are, what age, but it seems like the older we get, like even those basic functions can play into all of these channels of stress, let alone life, family, relationships, time of year, business. What isn't stress is a better question. And what are we doing to heal, to get back to homeostasis, to find that baseline when we know we're out of it?
Yeah.
So when you remove yourself, you take a day off, you take an hour, you go take a bath, you take a walk, what happens? We start to reaccess the parts of our brain that aren't fueled with all the stress and cortisol levels, to where we can start to assimilate a possible solution, or or take off a couple extra layers of lenses that were clouding our vision to begin with, to find some solutions. And so I think the most amazing thing we can do for ourselves is identify what we'd rather feel instead in that moment and go there. Whether it's a feeling of appreciation or an actual thing we need to do for our bodies or our minds or our souls, take ourselves out and just try to relax and do something different than in that moment. How many times have you been able to find solutions, get back on a writing track, see things you didn't see, but all the while your brain's lying and saying, you don't have time to do that. We don't have time. You're on a deadline. No, like, so simple and yet not easy.
Yeah, we have to break the pattern that's operating. And that was the other thing that I recognized, was that I have to move my body, because which is why like physically getting up is so important, right? So if I'm sitting here and trying to work on something and it's not working and I'm feeling stuck, and I can tell, right, that I believe that this is unique to everyone, but if we pay attention, and I would invite anybody that's listening to do this, to just start to notice before you lose your shit, there are signs that it's about to come, whether it's jaw tightening, a headache, a twitch in the leg, a feeling in the stomach, a lump in the throat. Like, there is something your body is letting you know. And so the sooner that we can catch it, then we can take action to take another route. And for me, like, whether it's going for a run, working out in some way, stretching, doing yoga, going for a walk, having sex, dancing in my living room, throwing a ball in the yard with my dogs, swinging on the swings, and sometimes it's just a matter of like getting up and just walking around the space, but doing something to shake up the energy. Because exactly what you said, Michelle, is that when we are focused on the problem, we don't have access to the solution. We have to get ourselves out of the container that the problem is in, so that we can access everything that's available around us. And sometimes the other thing that I need is another person's perspective. And that doesn't mean that I have to listen to what they say or do what they say or take action. When I say listen to what they say, I mean implement what they say. It doesn't mean I have to take action on their 2 cents or their advice or anything. Like, it doesn't mean I have to do that. But sometimes a person who is not in the problem, right, the third party observer, can see something that I can't see. So I'm very blessed in my life to have a lot of people where I can just ask someone that I respect and someone that I trust for their insight, and just allow myself to be open to seeing my situation through somebody else's lenses, because it expands my possibilities. It expands my options. And I know for myself, I used to not want to ask people, right? Because then I thought, like, if I was asking your opinion, I had to take it. So I didn't want to ask anybody that I didn't want to listen to. And so I tried to keep it all to myself. And then I realized I don't have to listen to what you say, meaning I don't have to implement what you say. But if I ask you, then I've at least allowed myself to be open to other options. And I really believe that it's that energy of saying, hey, God, universe, I'm open to other possibilities that can allow another solution to come in, even if it doesn't come from you when I asked, right? It's like letting them know, like, hey, I'm open to ideas, universe, if you want to deliver anything.
Yeah. And that itself has its own energetic feeling, different than crap, all the things that come when we're stressed out. And I was noticing my thoughts as you were saying that. The other end of that stick is I can do this myself. I don't need to ask anybody. I'll be a burden. Like there's two flips of that coin, right? Or two sides of the flipped coin. And I was like, oh, I used to sit in that one a lot. Figure out your stuff, If you don't burden someone else with your stuff, no one wants to hear. They're busy. And all those stories that run through our head that prevent us from asking the question, a better question, getting a different perspective, and just completely staying in our own minds thinking we are only the solution, even though we can't access the solution because our pride is keeping us from using what universally is available to us as connection and other humans. Like, I just found the irony in that so much, going, wow. So we're seriously looking for the same solutions from the brain that can't see it to begin with, in the patterns that we have to keep us in the same behaviors that are keeping us stressed out. And in that place of thinking we have to do the solution all on our own, and round we go, and we're never able to step out of the circle, the cycle of whatever we want to call it. Do I have a word? Because I didn't want to say crazy, but like the misery cycle. Like, this is better though. I'm better being in misery, staying in this cycle of I can do it and control it all, than like asking.
It's so scary though. I mean, and this will probably be a conversation for another day, but that's been, since yesterday, that's been a new awareness for me, is recognizing the areas and the relationships where I am not, and the relationships where I still am afraid. Truly, like, it is a fear of asking for what I want because of what I fear will be the consequence, right? Fear of being abandoned. It's not even like the no. It's about like, oh my gosh, like, will this change things, right? Will she not like me anymore? Will he not like me anymore? Will they be mad at me? Will they think that I'm a bad person? And just recognizing the areas where I mean, I said it last night. I was on a call and I just was bawling my eyes out. And I was like, truth be told, like, I'm terrified. I'm terrified. I'm terrified of asking, because not just if you say no, but what if it changes? And it's what you were referring to a few moments ago, Michelle. It's that we know the cycle. So, I mean, I said the words, and it actually makes me emotional to think about it right now, because I said the words, it's okay. Like, it's just, now's obviously just not, it's just not my time. And I thought, man, like, that's you're settling, and you're kind of putting a blanket on, like, to sort of smother the flames, right? You're putting a blanket on your desire and pretending that it's okay. And if they say no and they do leave or abandon, right? Like, if I asked you for something that I wanted inside of our relationship and you said no, and that ruined our friendship, then we didn't have the relationship that I thought that we had. And that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. and that's a grieving, and that's not a bad thing. Right. But all of that is like, it's just, but battling that, like, okay, so I know I'm supposed to say this, but like feeling that, I mean, fear, like absolute pure terror, and recognizing like I've been in this work for, and that's fine. It's not like I've been in the work for however many years, but like I've been in this work and deep, and I do this and teach it and train it, right? Like just like you, and still noticing myself being like, oh, it's okay. Like it's fine.
Yeah, don't worry about
I'm okay.
I'm good. I'm fine.
I don't want to bother you.
Yeah.
I don't put you out because I know you have stuff too.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't wanna burden you.
I'll sit with this longer because I'm really good at sucking it.
God,
Right?
like sitting with it, right? Like,
yeah, it'll wait. It's been here my whole life. Dude, totally. And you know what else? Like, it's still a really sexy way of not admitting that we think it's weakness to ask for help.
mm.
Because you should see me as that person who's got you.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless if I got me, I got you, because that keeps me from having me.
Right.
So there's that little bit, like I'll speak for me. There's a little bit of that lives when I hear that, the way that you're expressing it and how I have lived it, tend to catch myself. And that friendship thing has been really present for me this whole half of the year. And I've had to be willing to let it go for myself to get the clarity that I needed from having the conversations and making the asks that were really uncomfortable, because then I'm just that deep person that always has to think deep.
Yeah.
But what was really happening with that deep person who was really thinking deep, she wasn't clear on the words that were being said and the actions that were happening.
Mm.
And so where can I take responsibility in that? Clean up my shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And the fear is big because I didn't want any of those friendships to go away, but I also was out of congruency with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I still, to this day, in doing all this work and knowing these things, will find myself in areas of, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the stronger one. I'll suck it up. I'll fix it over here. So it'll be good for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful because I can. So my brain thinks. And truly disruptive in being honest and real with myself and what works better for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because my brain thinks, well, that means then you'll be alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think ultimately that's where we all think. Like I truly believe that all fears end with, and everybody's gonna leave. Yeah. Right? Like, and everybody's gonna leave, and you're gonna die.
You'll think it's
fear, under a bridge, or
too much for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or I'm not enough for you. Like, yes. Mm-hmm. Right. And honestly, if you had called me, I would have been so happy to just listen. Mm-hmm. And then check in and make sure I'm not trying to fix.
Yeah. I mean, and for me, even just yesterday, in full transparency, I almost didn't want to have the conversation that I requested, because I was like, I'm too emotional. Like, I need to come into this conversation not emotional. And I was like, you know what? Like, I am emotional. And if the tears come out, then the tears come out. And they did. I mean, I bawled through most of the call. And I was like, well, like, this just is what it is. And we'll see what happens, because I believe that we absolutely create illness. And I was telling you when we were talking before we jumped on the recording, like, my body's been doing some interesting things here recently. And I think that there's a reason for it. I mean, I have a client who, I mean, her vocal cords were bleeding from not speaking her truth. So I'm not saying that's everybody's story, but I do believe that that's real. And for me, it has to get to the point where that's not okay. And it's also okay to feel scared. You know, it's also okay to have that feeling. So the things for me that I've really learned and truly believe in when I get in this space of feeling devoured, your amazing word, by stress, is to get up, to walk away, take a break, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, doesn't have to be a long time. And sometimes that day off is really necessary.
Yeah.
But it's really important that we don't think that that's what's required, because sometimes 5 minutes is powerful. It's just a disruption of the space that you're in, putting yourself out to get another perspective, moving your body, shaking up the energy in some way, even if it just is like something like that, to just
clearing it
shake
out
up the space. Absolutely. Because I haven't figured out, let me say this, I haven't figured out how to avoid or eliminate all stress, because I believe you said this earlier. It's what's in the world.
No.
But we can build ourselves, care for ourselves, as you, self-care expert, know. And the more that we build ourselves up, then we become bigger than the stress. So then again, to use my analogy from earlier, if this is us, and the wave, right, is devouring us because we're small here, okay? But if we raise ourselves up here, and then the wave does the same wave, still comes in, it can wash over us, not because anything changed with the wave, but because we changed.
Heck yeah. Relationship keeps screaming through. It's the relationship that we'll have with stress. It's going to keep coming. Life's going to keep coming. Things are going to go wrong. People will hurt our feelings. Like, stuff happens. Who are we going to be as we're rising up to protect ourselves from that wave, as you were so beautifully saying, based off how we choose to build the relationship while it's not in play, and how we can utilize what we learn while it is.
Yeah.
So if we're pretending that we don't need to take care of ourselves when life is good, and then we punish ourselves because stress has happened and we find ourselves in this place, like, what is the expectation? Because we're already in this place. But if we can start to practice daily to get better at identifying what we need, we can get better at identifying what it is that is driving the bus in that moment with the stress that we want to feel opposite. And what we do is we spend so much time not knowing ourselves, not paying attention, not giving ourselves the space. We fill our calendars. We don't make time for us to just, because that's just wasting time. So we don't, we forget that there are so many simple things we do. And you're right, it doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 5 minutes. We can go outside and sit in the grass for 5 minutes, take a walk, get a drink of water. Did we eat food today, or did we just schedule ourselves all the way through? Did we go to the bathroom like we needed to, or are we holding it? Like, what's real? And this is so true in entrepreneurship, especially starting out. We get so excited, right? But then you enter in, your calendar with, I have my family's calendar. There's 4 calendars running all the time. And now it's just times 4. So where are you in that scenario? What do you need? What makes you feel best? And how far are you from that spectrum when you're in that wave of stress? Because I believe, like, what it means is we've been allowing our environment to train us into a vibration that's not natural. And then we say, or we think it's normal, but stress and negativity has become the habit instead of feeling grateful, love, joy, happiness, appreciation, and knowing what that feels like. And you know what's really interesting? In our thoughts, we're able to switch that just by noticing that it's something else is there. And then just jumping to that feeling of appreciation and how it flows in our body. You can't have one without, you can't do both, right? And I had this other thing I wanted to say, and I think it's like faded away, but I'll let you speak. Maybe it'll come back.
No, it's good. I mean, honestly, I think that's super powerful. My invitation and my invitation is to follow some of these thoughts that were shared with Michelle and with myself, and notice, become aware of what your patterns and habits are when you're experiencing the feeling of stress, and see what you can do to actually take action to make a change, and not be, and I love this, I wrote this down, like, where are you? What do you need? And asking that question, I mean, that, when you said that, am I allowing my environment to train me? I mean, that just, like, it almost had this feeling of like, oh no, like I am not, right? Like I'm the one that's in control here. But that question is almost so disruptive that it really gives, um, with a lot of love, like a slap across the face, like a reality. Wait a minute, what's happening here? And it gives the power to snap us out of it. And those are the things that we need, because in the moment when we are being overcome, or we feel like we are, and we feel like we're drowning, or we feel like we're being devoured, we need that, like that pattern interrupt. We need the disruption to kind of snap us back, so that we can then make a new choice.
Yes.
And that would be my hope for you, my desire for you, to create just a couple of things. I mean, that list for me, that's my go-to, right? It's not specific in terms of I always do this. It's general enough to give me flexibility, right? Like walk away. The amount of time, that depends, right? Breathe, right? The amount of time, that depends. Get a new perspective. What that looks like might differ based on the amount of time that I have. And then move my body. And what that looks like, again, might depend, because I don't want you to be so attached to the, I have to do this exact thing.
Right? Yeah. Like it's
different. That doesn't give room, but to have that higher purpose. And your questions, Michelle, where are you? What do you need? There was one more that I didn't write down fast enough. And then, am I allowing my environment to train me? These are the things that you can keep, whether it's in, I email myself notes because I forget about my text sometimes.
Yeah.
Whether you text yourself or you set a reminder, you email yourself, these are the things that I believe are important to print out, to carry with you, to set as reminders, because we need that. Because in the moment of stress, as Michelle explained earlier so beautifully and with such a high level of articulation, the brain literally doesn't have access to any of this when we're in those moments of stress. So that's my hope that you take away from this episode.
Yeah. And that list, like you just said, what are my go-to lists? Like, here's another flip, if you want to call it a flip. What of those things that you've written down that make you feel better in that moment are you doing on a daily basis?
Yeah, that's
and I'm not saying spend an hour. I'm saying, what of those things that bring you joy, fill your cup, make you feel better, are you neglecting on a daily basis for yourself? And how might you be able to add one thing in? Like, the thing I work most with my clients is really taking it back to what we say we want and looking at what we're not doing and how we can start to integrate a few of those things we want into our day. Like I said, daily practice. So when, as we were both like joking around, but like if the shit hits the fan, what can we call upon? What can we check in with? What do I need in this moment? What's stressing me out? Right? I usually get, you're overscheduled, you didn't eat today, you didn't take time for yourself, you've given up your walk 3 days in a row. Like, what are the things? And then I go, oh, and then I go do those things, even if it's a smaller amount of time. How does that feel? And is that the vibration you'd rather have? And so what's interesting that you said, oh no, it's not my environment, I'm in control. I wanted to say, then why are you feeling out of control? And that's the conversations, the real and honest conversations that we can have with ourselves to get the better answers, because we start asking better questions instead of being over here and pretending that we got our shit together and we're human and we don't have to. Like, the messages are in our mess, if that makes sense. And I believe the stress, the overwhelm, the frustration show up to tell us what we need to do differently to get ourselves back to that place of not stress, overwhelm, and frustration?
Well said.
Even, even the tears.
Mm-hmm.
Any emotion that's not love and appreciation and gratitude, like there's something to be learned in those.
For sure.
For us. I feel like I'm empty of my rant now.
I love it. I feel complete. Great conversation today. And I certainly hope that there are takeaways and that you are leaving this conversation today with some things that you can actually do.
Yeah, some tangible action steps. Yeah. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us. We'll put an email link below, or if you see this in any other social media venue that has chat in the box, please feel free to do that as well. And we'll stay in touch that way. You can follow us on all the socials. What else do you have for us? Any last beautiful words from you, my friends?
The awareness of my contribution to the devouring of self is not for blame or about anything that you did wrong, but taking ownership of my role inside of the problem is what will give you the access to the solution.
Yeah.
Because it has to come from us. And so relinquishing that blame is empowering, because then you have something that you can do. And that's what I know Michelle, I'm going to speak for her. And if you disagree, you can say, but that's what we want for you, is to walk away from this and any of the episodes feeling empowered to actually do something. And the only way to do that is to recognize where we are contributing to the problem. And again, not to punish or be mad or feel guilty or anything like that, but just being real so that we have the capability of making a change.
Yeah, thank you. That well said and necessary. And as you were saying it out loud, I'm like, that was the thing. Like, without guilt, just data, just becoming our best observer so we can pivot a little easier and just open our awareness and say, I am in choice.
Yeah.
Because that's where the freedom is, right? And just accepting that subconsciously, consciously, intentionally, there's no perfect. We don't have to strive to be perfect when we can just accept our beautiful human imperfection unapologetically. Look at that, mic drop.
Well said.
All right, you guys. Talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.